Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2026. This is Citizen of the World, and what we cover here are whiskeys in general. You'll notice in this year's list, it'll be primarily in my top 10. These will be bottles that I was able to get my hands on. I did get a chance to try a number of the different ones from this year. Let's say some of the more coveted ones. I was able to try the Calumet 18 at a bar at a hotel up in New Jersey. Exceptional, but I wasn't able to actually get a bottle. So therefore it's not included in our list. And the same was also true of the Jack Daniels, the Tanyard Hill Rye, which I'm still gonna find somehow. Most likely be secondary market, and ditto for the Jack Daniels 14. Those are some of the ones that I didn't get a chance to get. And along those same lines, I wasn't able to get a version of the 10-year or the 12-year this year of the Jack Daniels. Part of that is I live down in South Florida. And here in South Florida, we have a big flipper culture. And those fellows or ladies who manage to get their hands on these bottles at the liquor stores tend to snatch them up off the shelves right away. And they're only available in secondary markets for rather exaggerated markups, 200%, 300%, 400%, 500%, in the case of the Jack Daniels 14 year. So hard to get. It's been an amazing year, and I will do another review, let's call it a summary of the year. There was some great whiskey this year. I think we can all admit that there really wasn't any bad whiskey put out, or rather it was very difficult to find any bad whiskey. So this list of top 10 is always very subjective, and putting it together was kind of eye-opening for me. You'll notice it has a number of surprises. So let's start with number 10. So number 10 is the Wild Turkey Beacon. This is a lovely whiskey, beautiful. It's their classic Wild Turkey. And what I mean by that is you get your basics of bourbon, but with that specific Wild Turkey touch. So it has that spiciness that comes from the rye, and it has that earthiness that comes from the malted barley. It's a mix of these beautiful sweet fruit, let's say on the initial taste on the mouth, followed by this rich tobacco aging. You clearly pick up the 16-year-old portion of this with these tannic tobacco, hint of leather on the back end. But for me, it didn't rank any higher, and that may be controversial for some folks. I know initially I was thinking it might actually end up being whiskey of the year, but there's actually, in my opinion, something missing in the middle. It's as if it goes very, very sweet and deep, dark, let's say more aged notes. I think it would have benefited from something in the middle, something a la Generations, right? Something that carries that full palate through. Anyway, this was number 10. Number 9 is the Knob Creek 21 year. This is also an excellent Jim Beam product. I did rank it, interestingly enough, ahead of the Beacon. This is, while I would say that the Beacon strikes me as, let's say, a little bit two-dimensional, not truly three-dimensional. This one is also a two-dimensional whiskey, but that sweet, sweet oak is incredible on this. It is, for a 21-year-old bourbon, it's kind of shocking that it's not more tannic. The tannins are definitely there. You get your black tea notes, you get your leather notes, your tobacco notes, very mild on the caramel, very mild on the vanilla, but it has this beautiful mouthfeel, and I would call it a medium to long finish. I think the proof point is perfect for this. I think had it been any higher, it probably would be difficult to drink because of the oakiness. But if you like sweet oak, and clearly this is an oaky product, if you like sweet oak, this was great. This is number 9 on the Citizen of the World Best Whiskeys of 2025 list. Number 8 on the list is the Russell's Reserve Single Rick, the Camp Nelson E. This is similar to the Beacon, has your classic Wild Turkey profile, but amped up. The proof comes across on this really profoundly. It's kind of like a bold punch to the mouth. So let's take what I described on the Beacon and ramp it up. So while ramping up, let's say, the proof aspect of it, which draws, I guess, more from the barrels, but it tempers that 16-year-old age note. You don't get too much of that in this. You don't get the tobaccos or the leathers with that same profoundness that you get in the Beacon, but you get this really bold character. The spiciness on this from the rye is readily apparent, matched with a nice balance from the proof. It is a bold pour with a long finish. It's a great single rick. I will put this up later on in the month against the other single ricks, the B and the F. Those are the ones that I have. All right, number 8. Number 7 on the Citizen of the World list is the Heaven Hill 90th anniversary. I got this one actually just after Christmas, managed to snag this. This is a beautiful, delicious whiskey. It has an absolutely gorgeous mouthfeel. Your classic bourbon notes of the caramels and the vanillas. It's almost leans into a toffee with this lovely fruit. And it's a mix between, let's say, hints of those peaches and let's say even cherries that you would get with this cola note. It's got this beautiful cola note that I think is hard to miss. The proof point on this, I think, is on the low side, right? No, it's actually 107 proof. I think it's actually a perfect proof with an absolutely beautiful mouthfeel. This is a wonderful whiskey. I am not typically a big Heaven Hill fan, but this was just exceptional. This is number 7. Number 6 is the Baumberger's Precision Fine Grain, the PFG, and you know, you've heard a lot of folks joke about the acronym, what PFG could stand for. The French oak on this lends this structure, so it's not just the spiciness that you typically get or that cocoa vein that tends to run through bourbons that are finished in the French oak, but that spiciness and that oak structure, which is clearly present with the tannins, balances out the sweetness of the fruit. This is a very well structured bourbon at 100, I think it's just over 100 proof. Yeah, it is 100.2. Classic Michter's profile, but with this structure that I think is just absolutely exceptional. The Baumberger's PFG. Number 5 on Citizen of the World list is the Michter's 10-year bourbon. This happens to be an A batch. I had never been a big fan of Michter's products. I tried the basics of the US one. I think those are great bourbons and ryes if you like to use them in a cocktail. I think they actually are beautiful in a cocktail. They lend a gorgeous mouthfeel, a creaminess, if you will, to your different whiskeys. So I reluctantly tried the 10-year, and I got to tell you, this blew me away. This is actually the only bourbon to crack my top 5. This is hard to get, particularly down here in South Florida. I did happen to find it in a shop. It was behind the counter, and it was a secondary price, but I tried it just to at least have one and be able to speak to it and know of what these 10-year bourbons are. Absolutely exceptional. The mouthfeel on this is one of the most luxurious bourbons I think you can have, and I find that 90-something proof point, what is it? It's a 94.4 proof point, is absolutely beautiful. This is a rich, balanced whiskey. It has all the wonderful aspects I was describing a moment ago in the PFG, but in my opinion, executed to a level which is really hard to duplicate. Absolutely beautiful whiskey. This is the Michter's 10-year. Number 4 is the Stranahan's 12-year Founders Reserve American Single Malt. And one of the interesting things that you'll see is that the top of my list this year is actually populated by malt whiskeys, which is kind of shocking for me. I didn't actually expect that, but here we are. And I think this is a testament to the craftsmanship of the American single malt. This is an absolutely beautiful whiskey. This is a mix of, let's say, a gorgeous mouthfeel, but full of milk chocolate, cinnamon, cocoa powder on, let's say, like a nice tannic coffee. This beautiful long finish. It's actually quite high proof. It's 120 proof, so 60% alcohol. Beautiful product from Stranahan's. Beautiful whiskey. This is number 4. Number 3 is the Westward Whiskies Milestone 3. If you recall from last year, Milestone 2, I thought was one of the most beautiful whiskeys I'd had. This is actually a malted whiskey, but done through the Solera system. So they have an actual Solera system with various cask finishes that, they extract a portion of it for that year's batch, and then they add, let's say, additional malt whiskey from that year's harvest or distillate at the top. And it makes this incredible profile. I described to you in the Stranahan's that milk chocolate vein. This has pretty much any type of whiskey flavor you could think of, other than peat. It does have a beautiful char note in it as well, but you get that milk chocolate I described before. You get essentially, let's say, walnut skins from the nut itself, a hint of cinnamon, a cocoa vein through the entire whiskey, this earthiness that comes from that malted barley. You get a taste of coffee, leather, tobacco leaves, rich, sweet tobacco leaves, coupled with this oak. And as I mentioned before, the fruitiness. The fruitiness on this is exceptional. Things like fermented mangoes. There's a raisin note in the back which comes through. Actually, I can't tell if it's raisins or, let's say, almost like a prune. It's absolutely incredible. This is a contemplative pour. This is one of those whiskeys that you would like to have on a cold winter's night where you can sit back and just sip it slowly. This is perhaps one of the most beautiful malt whiskeys that the US is putting out, and I believe it does compete with those best in the world. Speaking of which, let's move to our number 2. Well, those of you that know me probably won't be surprised, but this Octomore 16.3 is this year's number 2. This is a Scottish single malt. This is from Islay, from their Octomore farm, or rather they source the barley from Islay at the Octomore farm, and it's the 0.3 indicates that it's aged in a mix of casks, typically on the sweeter side. The entire series this year, the 0.1, the 0.2, was exceptional. This one came in, I think, for the ppm, this hit 189.5 ppm on the malted barley. This is before the distillation process, so before it actually goes into the mash. Absolutely gorgeous whiskey. It's a mix. You may have heard me say this before, but it's a mix similar to what you would get if you were to take, let's say, charcoal grilled lamb that has been seasoned with rosemary and kosher salt, and you're taking a bite of that savory salinity, herbal richness, mixed with, let's say, a teaspoon of an apricot marmalade. It's absolutely stunning. This is a beautiful whiskey. Yes, on the pricey side, my opinion, worth every penny, and it does come in number 2. This is from the Bruichladdich Distillery. The Octomore 16.3 is our number 2. Number 1. Number 1 is the Bruichladdich X4, which is an 18-year minimum distillate. This is finished in 60% reef salt casks and the other 40% in ex-bourbon casks. And then they blended them together. This was actually, the distillate was done by Jim McEwen. This is back when they had, let's say, resurrected the distillery. This is a distillery exclusive. I picked it up because I actually purchase a lot of my whiskey through their European site. So I was tracking them as one of their members. I get those regular emails from them, and I follow them on Instagram, and saw that this was coming out and figured I would try. I thought it might be fun. This is not peated, okay? But this has this maybe one of the most beautiful whiskeys I think I've ever had. This is essentially, I would call this whiskey perfection. This is a mix of the casks that it lends this entire profile of fermented fruit against a salinity that is balanced with this aged oak on this absolutely gorgeous mouthfeel that kind of just rolls along your tongue. So from the initial first sip, as it coats across the tongue, it's just waves and waves of flavor just punching out. Makes your mouth water as it starts to let's say, pull these additional flavors from it. I've done this damage in 2 days. It actually goes pretty quick. It is 63.5% ABV, so that puts us at 127 proof. You do not taste the proof on this. It is there, and you feel it when you go to get up. If you've been sitting down. I describe the Octomore and the Milestone as contemplative pours. This is a whiskey that I think is appropriate enough for summer sipping as well as winter sipping. It does not need any water. I would not serve this one over a cube of ice. I might do the Russell's Reserve Camp Nelson E over a cube of ice, but this one I certainly would not. This is an absolutely beautiful whiskey, and I would say Bruichladdich continues to be my favorite distillery. So here in Citizen of the World, that was our favorite top 10 whiskeys from 2025. I will do a year in review, and I will share with you that it's been an absolutely incredible year. We'll talk a bit about the buff turkeys and my discovery this year of 3 different distilleries that I'd never been aware of. So it was the Nashville Barrel Company. Actually, they're not distilleries, they're an NDP, and the sourcing of their whiskey. Buff turkeys in general, which I think have been one of the, let's say, the gifts for those of us who love good whiskey for this year. The selection of really good barrels of buff turkey, as well as discovery for me of the NDP Mayor Pingree. Those were some of the best ryes that I think I may have ever had in my life. And as you know me, I am a rye drinker. I love ryes. I love the complexity that a rye brings, or let's say a well-aged rye. And the Mayor Pingrees are exceptional. We'll talk about those in our year review. Anyway, Citizen of the World, all the best. This forms the launch of our channel. I look forward to seeing you on other videos. Again, for this to pop up in your algorithm, it helps to interact with me. So if you like the video, like it. Let me know your comments on what you thought of this year's whiskeys, and if you've got a line into how I can get my hands on some of those Jack Daniels at a reasonable price, let me know. All the best. Happy New Year.